So let's move on and talk about that new book. It's a great title. The new book is called Woketapus. I hope I'm pronouncing that the way you intended. So tell us about the new book and why people should read it.
Yeah, it's Woketapus, like woke octopus. So I don't know if you remember back, I think it might have been around 10 years ago. They started going after the Koch brothers and they had books called The
Yes.
Kochtopus. And so this
Hmm.
is a play off of that where I'm showing, and it's the octopus arms over the Capitol building because
Right.
they're infiltrating the federal government. And there are three aspects of it. There's the left's dark money network, as I call them. People like George Soros, now Alex Soros is running Open Society Foundations,
Hmm.
the Arabella Advisors Network. These people who are sending money to far left activist groups. And then the far left activist groups are then infiltrating and advising the federal government. And this went crazy under Biden. So we saw President Biden nominating many people in high level, cabinet positions who had either been at unions, who had been at
Yes.
far left organizations. And of course, nobody represents this better than John Podesta, who was, Bill Clinton's White House chief of staff, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, founder of the Center for American Progress, which is a humongous left wing activist group that sent, I think it was about 70 people into the Biden administration. And John Podesta was put in charge of determining where all the money went in the Inflation Reduction Act. So
Good
we all
old John
remember,
Podesta. Yes.
yeah, yeah, it's like, and he was on the board of one of these Solyndra style green boondoggle companies that fell apart.
Yes.
So yeah, I tracked the influence, and that's why the book on the Southern Poverty Law Center led very naturally into this one because I saw the weaponization of government against conservatives, and there was a heavy hand of the SPLC in that in the Biden administration. One other thing I want to mention because I think it's really interesting. We all remember the when Biden declared Transgender Day of Visibility on none other than Easter Sunday. And one of the reasons why I think he did that was because of the impact of the Human Rights Campaign, a group I call the LGBTQ Mafia. Because what they do is they go to corporations, they go to influential people, and they say, look, if you don't toe the line, we're going to sick our activists on you and we're going to give you a bad score on our corporate equality index. And then what
Yes.
that ends up doing is it tells all the investors who follow the ESG model that they should never put money into these companies. They should blacklist them. And so the Human Rights Campaign had tremendous impact in corporate America. Thankfully, that's largely eroding now, especially with President Trump and his executive orders. A lot of companies have pulled out of the Human Rights Campaign index, which is a really positive step for our country. It's getting business back into the business of business as opposed to the business of pushing left wing ideology. And I don't want these groups to be constantly focused on pushing conservative ideology. I want them to be focused on making the best goods for the American people at the lowest price so that we can all benefit as a society. And groups like the Human Rights Campaign are one of the main ones pushing capitalism in this socialist, this very anti market agenda. But anyway, under
It's
Biden,
just-
the Human Rights Campaign released this document saying this is exactly what we want the federal government to do. And Biden essentially said, you want me to jump? How high? And
yes.
he implemented at least 75% of what the Human Rights Campaign asked for. So I have what I call the Biden Equality Index, where the president scored far too high, and we should all be using that as an albatross around the Democratic Party.
Well, I think given that they're polling between 17 and 21% right now, last I saw, they keep talking about Trump's poll numbers, but the interesting thing is a lot of the media. You mentioned something about language, and I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Progressivism was a positive concept as America turned the corner literally in 1900 with McKinley assassinated, of course. Teddy Roosevelt came in, and that was the birth of progressivism. And it was this launch that allowed America to win 2 world wars and land on the moon first. This current movement, I call them the regressives. I think they're just totally misnomered. And the other term I'm favorite about switching around is the Daily Signal, other publications, the Heritage Society, publications of Hillsdale College, the Imprimis, has 5 million subscribers. And I think that this term mainstream media has been way, way overused. My personal term in social media is slop stream media. And I am still surprised, given that that the largely more conservative media stations have surged in this marketplace over the last few years. Newsmax went public, and they've done very well going public. I mean, incredible numbers. I think that the term mainstream media is definitely way off. And what made me think of it is this term about human rights. And I represent human rights. I am so strongly in favor of human rights, and I don't see anything in the conservative playbook that is contrary to real rights of humans. And it's just sad, because it's like, how can you, Tyler O'Neill, how can you, Dr. Dave Shaw, be against human rights? And it's like, well, let's take a look at who's calling what human rights. So
Yes.
love your approach there. This is Dr. David D. Shine. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.